Hey y'all, welcome back. So today's video is a little different because technically speaking, we're talking about shoes and not dolls, but we're talking about doll related shoes. So like, it still counts and I wanted to talk about it. So the shoe brand YRU is doing a collaboration with Monster High. They currently have several pairs of shoes up on their website.
So that's actually not true anymore. Hi, it's editing me here. I literally filmed this video earlier today, and then pretty much right after I filmed it, found out that the shoes are out of stock currently. I'm not sure if there's going to be a restock or what the plan is. But yeah, I am just already inaccurate, but I did want to try to use this footage, so the editing might have to get a little bit creative here. I might have to talk over myself a few times. We're gonna make it work though. The whole point is that I'm gonna be talking about my opinions. I'll be saying that in a second, but I am sorry for starting this off with being flat out wrong. This is something that happens to me all the time. I'm always like slightly behind the curve, but what can I do?
And I thought it would be fun to go ahead and give you my opinions on each of the shoes. I'm not going to be buying any. Number one reason is just because while I think that a lot of them are really cute, obviously we'll be getting more in depth into that in a second. But yeah, while I think they are pretty cute, they're not really shoes that I could see myself wearing in my day-to-day life. So there's no point in me spending money on them if I don't think I'm going to wear them, especially because they are pretty expensive shoes. They range from $140 US to like $175 or $185 US. When I talk about each individual shoe, I'll have the price in the corner so you can see what they are.
Unless they do a restock, the price is kind of irrelevant now, but I'm still going to put it up there because why not?
But they're definitely not cheap shoes, so I'm not going to be buying them just because the price point is a little bit high for Monster High shoes. I like the concept. I think that they would be cool to display with the dolls just because it's an interesting piece of Monster High memorabilia, and I would do that if they were like $30, but definitely not for this price point, for shoes that I'm not going to wear at least, because like, if you're gonna wear them, that's dandy, and like I understand that a lot of times shoes are just expensive items of clothing to buy. But yeah, for me, if I'm not gonna wear them, I won't be buying them. So instead of purchasing them, I'm just gonna give you my thoughts on the stock photos that we have of these shoes. As per usual, this is just my opinion, and if you disagree, that is totally fine. I'm not gonna be doing these in any particular order. I'm kind of just going in the order that they were listed on the website. But if you guys would like to tell me like which is your favorite and your least favorite in the comments down below, I would be very, very happy to hear that. And then the last thing that I have to get out of the way, as always, if you like the video, if you could give it a like, that's very helpful to me. And if you're new here and you enjoy your time, maybe subscribe so you can see more. I also do have to add really quickly that the channel did just hit 6,000 subscribers, which is just so baffling to me. I am constantly in a state of gratitude every time I log onto this website, seeing the comments and the feedback that you guys leave and getting to have conversations with you and seeing the channel grow means a lot. So very, very much thank you guys. But with that, let's go ahead and start looking at these shoes. Okay, so the first ones are Draculaura inspired, and they are basically exact replicas of her boots from her Gen 1 signature doll. We will be talking about the like generational inspirations a bit at the end because I do think it's kind of fascinating, but these are very, very near replicas to Draculaura's Gen 1 boots. They do have a few extra black straps, but otherwise pretty much identical. I think they're cute because I do think that her boots are pretty cute. I love the material they chose for these just because I'm a sucker for a good shiny shoe. I think that that's a really pretty color. All of the shoes are very high platforms. I think that that's just like a style with YRU shoes, and I think it's pretty fun. It's also kind of hard to see, but there is a little skullette in the back that's Draculaura's skullette on the heel, and I think that that's a really, really cute reference. Overall, I do think that they are quite precious. Again, not something that I could see myself wearing, but I do really, really like these. Then we have what are my personal favorites, and these are replicas basically of Clawdeen's boots from her Gen 1 release. Again, with the high platform, really, really cool. These are probably, like I said, my favorite and the closest to one that I would maybe wear on like a special occasion, but again, I can't see myself wearing it in the day-to-day. That's not anything against people who do wear this kind of style on their day-to-day. I'm just not that cool, if I'm being honest. But I do think that they look really, really awesome. I love all of the buckles, the different materials, how shiny the purple is really cool. I will say that just based on the stock photo, I obviously don't have these shoes, don't have any intention of having these shoes, so I don't want to speak ill of them because like, I'm not doing a review, you know, like I don't have them, but they do look like they're very, very tight around the calves. So I feel like if you have kind of thicker calves, like I don't have slender calves, I feel like they might be kind of uncomfortable, but I would be very curious to see someone who buys these shoes actually do a review on them, because I would be curious to see if that is in fact the case. But looks-wise, if we're going purely on looks, I think that these are really, really sick shoes. And then up next, I'm sure you can see a theme here, is Frankie's Gen 1 heel. This one is not my favorite. They're kind of one of my least favorites. I just don't like this particular shoe. Those of you who have been on the channel for a while know that I really only got into Frankie in Gen 3. I've never been a fan of G1 or G2 Frankie, so I don't have like the nostalgic connection to the character, and these heels are fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. I just don't find them as exciting as some of the other shoes that we have talked about and are going to be talking about. That being said, I know a lot of people loved Gen 1 Frankie, and these also might be the most subtle shoes in this collection, the ones that you could wear the easiest without it automatically being a Monster High reference. So if you are someone who wants to buy them because you love Monster High, but you don't necessarily want to be like shouting that from the rooftops, these are a really good option because they are just, at the end of the day, black and white heels. Like, they're funky, they're fun, but they're not, as far as I can tell, like branded Monster High on the outside. They're not like super costumey or anything like that. So I do think that these have a time and place. They're just not my personal favorite, but I'm sure that a lot of people are really gonna like these. Then we are switching it up a little bit. These are inspired by Frankie from G3, which is different from all the other shoes because they've all been G1 references, but these are the first G3 referencing shoes that are just like Frankie's sneakers. Obviously, they're a little bit more platform in the YRU version than on Frankie, but I do think they're really cute. I like this color scheme a lot. I like the embossed lightning bolts that they added to the platform. I think that's really fun. I don't know, because I don't have Frankie's core doll from G3, so I don't know if they have stitches on their shoes like this. But I like the addition to it because, like, the lightning bolt could just be a lightning bolt, and I think the stitches definitely make it more clearly Frankie and more defined that it's, like, Monster High inspired. I think these are really fun, and I also do think that these are pretty wearable. Obviously, depending on your style, like, wearable is a very relative term, but we have some coming up that are very intensely Monster High themed. So I think that these are some that are a little bit less obvious if, again, you're someone who doesn't like the most obvious routes. And then the next ones are just a recolor of the last ones. The last ones were like the proper G3 coloring, and then these are just like the black alternative. I do like them in the sense that I like black as a color because it's very easy to pair other things with, and black is just my favorite neutral personally, but I do kind of like the other ones better because they're more accurate to Frankie's doll in G3, and I just kind of appreciate that. But it is kind of cool that this particular style got two colorways so that people could kind of choose which one they want, and I do think that the color scheme still looks good, so that's pretty fun. We're back to the G1 inspiration. These are G1 Ghoulia's shoes, pretty much exactly. They're fine. Much like G1 Frankie, I've never been a Ghoulia fan in any generation, so again, I don't have that nostalgia factor, but it is kind of funny because they do just look like really tall lace-up Converse. Obviously, there is the skullet patch to kind of tie in Monster High more, but I feel like the super tall Converse was very much a style from when I was younger, and so it is kind of just cool to see the shoe that I desperately wanted as a kid now being sold. Not, again, necessarily because I wanted Ghoulia's shoe, but just because I like this knee-high shoe. Not so much my style anymore. Things obviously change, but that's okay. I do still think that they are pretty cute. I think that Ghoulia's color scheme with the black and white and red is really easy to mix and match with, so I do think that these would be pretty easy to style just because I think the color palette is pretty easy to match. Yeah, I think this is a really solid shoe. Okay, so we're on the last two, and these two are the most aggressively Monster High themed, which I know is weird for me to say considering the previous shoes have all been basically cosplay shoes. Like, they've literally been directly inspired from the shoes the dolls wear. But these last two shoes are more general Monster High themed, and so I think because of that, they are a little bit more in your face and a little bit more extreme in the references. Because if someone doesn't know what Draculaura's boots look like, if they're not a Monster High fan, they probably won't know that you're wearing Draculaura's boots. They'll just think you're wearing pink and black boots. But these are pretty obviously Monster High. These maybe are the more subtle of the two that I'm talking about, but they're also my least favorite. I just don't like this particular cut of sneaker with a platform bottom. Nothing against you if this is your style, it's just not something that I would wear myself. The color scheme is really intense with the bright blue, bright pink, but that's fine. Obviously, if you like wearing this and you want to rep Monster High this way, more power to you. They're not my cup of tea. And then the last ones, again, very, very obvious, but I like these more because of the skullet details on the buckles. I also just like the cut more. I like a boot better than I like a sneaker, I think. So that's like going in its favor. But again, they are very loud with the plaid print all over. Not saying that's a bad thing, they just are pretty loud. I do love the blue tread and the blue buckles. I think that that's a really cool way to incorporate the blue of the color scheme. But like I said, my favorite part is the different skullets, because across the buckles they have the skullets for all the different characters. So on one shoe there's Draculaura, Clawdeen, and Frankie, and then on the other shoe there's Ghoulia, Laguna, and Cleo. And I think it's really, really cool that they didn't just do basic like Monster High skullets, but instead they literally did the character theme ones. I just think that's a really, really awesome way to rep the characters, and especially if you are someone who like wants a lot of the other shoes but you kind of have to pick one, because again, they are pretty expensive shoes, so you might not be able to afford to get all of them. I think this is a cool way to kind of represent all of the characters instead of like having to pick your favorite to get a shoe for. I hope that makes sense. I just thought that that was a really fun design element, and I really like that they do that. And also, even though it is really small, I'm a sucker for mismatched shoes, so technically these are mismatched because they aren't like exact duplicates of each other. And yeah, I think that's really fun. Overall, I would say that my favorites are, like I said, Clawdeen's boots. I just think those are really sick. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of Clawdeen's G1 design overall, like her core doll, but I do think that her boots are absolutely stunning, and I do love them as these platforms. And then my least favorite are the first kind of generic Monster High ones. I do think a lot of it is the cut. Like the sneaker cut is just not particularly one that I'm vibing with. But, you know, there's something for everybody, right? Okay, so now that we've gone over all the shoes, I can talk about the inspirations from different generations, because basically all of these shoes, with the exception of G3 Frankie's shoes, were inspired by either Gen 1 dolls or just Gen 1 like colorways. Like the general Monster High shoes were still pretty like heavily linked to what I would consider Gen 1 aesthetics, and I do think that it was intentional and honestly a pretty smart choice, because again, I'm not trying to like say this in an insulting way, because like I have a lot of opinions on doll prices. I have a lot less opinions on shoe prices because I know that it's something that I'm less knowledgeable in, and also shoes are just more expensive and they're meant to be worn, so they need to be way more durable. That's kind of beside the point. I'm just bringing up the price because they are expensive shoes. They're not something that everyone has the money to just throw at and buy all of these. And so I do think it makes a lot of sense that Monster High decided to go with a lot of Gen 1 designs in this case, because the people who are most likely to have the excess money to be able to buy these shoes are the older fans who might have their own jobs and more stable income, versus G3's target demographic is literally children, so like not necessarily the people who are most able to be buying these shoes. Obviously there are adult fans of G3, I am very, very much one of them, but I can understand why a lot of the designs harken more towards the nostalgia and are more targeted at an adult audience rather than a kid audience or even like a teenage audience, just because they have to go where the money is. And so I do think it was smart that they did that, but it was just kind of interesting for me to see that basically all the designs were the G1 designs, with again the exception of Frankie, which again is something that I think is funny because I feel like Frankie has always been a fan favorite character, and again, I only came around to them in G3, but I feel like people have always loved Frankie, so it's really interesting that the one G3 shoe that they decided to throw in was Frankie's. It was just a fascinating choice that they made. I get it. I totally understand it. It was just kind of an interesting thing that I wanted to point out. Overall, though, I do think that the collection as a whole is really, really cool. I would have loved to have seen a few more shoes. I think that Monster High is known for their really interesting and fascinating shoes. I've heard rumors of maybe like a second drop. I don't know for sure, like please don't take me at my word for that, but I have heard rumors that there are going to be more, and I would love to see that in the future, especially if they continue doing these kind of replica shoes, because again, some of the shoes on these dolls are so amazing. It makes perfect sense for Monster High to be collaborating with a shoe company, so I do think that the execution of what they've done is really amazing. It'd be really cool to see like some Cleo shoes, just because I'm a sucker for anything Cleo. But yeah, I'm very curious to see where this leads in the future. I would love to hear, like I said earlier, what you guys think of all these different shoes and which is your favorite.
Here I was saying that I hope that if you want to get them, you are able to. However, as of time of editing, they aren't available. So I guess I should change tense and say that I hope that if you tried, you were able to get them.
But yeah, I would love to know what your guys' thoughts are on these. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys!